you're constantly stressing out your muscles intentionally against resistance when we work out, because when you stress out your muscles or your cardiovascular system, it improves. It gets bigger, stronger, more resilient. So why should we think that we're not supposed to have resistance in our life where growth, personal growth, financial growth is concerned?
All right, Bedros, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us. Absolutely. So, you're known as the man who revolutionized the gym franchising, what do you call it? The anti-franchise franchise. I love that.
Yeah. Fit Body Bootcamp started off as the anti-franchise franchise because franchises were just too strict, too cumbersome. They kind of put the franchisees in a position of constantly losing. And I wanted to do the exact opposite and help them win.
And I think you do that. You help a lot of people win because you guys have expanded tremendously. But before we get too much into Fit Body Bootcamp and everything else, I want to take a trip back in history because you've got an interesting story to tell. I mean, you grew up in Armenia. Let's really focus on just the family dynamic and everything else that happened through that.
Yeah. So, dude, when I think about like who I was and who I am now, it's like two different stories because really I feel like I'm the Cinderella man, right? The immigrant edge, the American dream. In 1980, I was 6 years old. My dad decides that as a family, we're going to escape the Soviet Union. And he was a member of the Communist Party. And so we escaped into Italy because they were communist sympathizers. And so that was an easier move to pretend like we're going to Italy for a vacation as a family. But then once we got to Italy, we beelined it right to the American consul. And my dad's like, hey, I'm a member of the Communist Party. I denounce communism. We want to enter the United States. And if you want to pump me for any information, you can. 10 days later, we legally entered the United States as refugees, as immigrants. And what was really cool about that is that we got to come to the United States and start over. What was uncool about that is that we were broke, we were poor, we didn't understand the culture, didn't understand the language or speak the language. So we lived on government assistance and Section 8 housing, which isn't necessarily the best types of housing to live in, but beggars can't be choosers. And so life in the first 2, 3, 4 years in the United States was pretty rough and tumble for us in terms of living very, very poorly. One time, in fact, it's so weird to even talk about this, Chris, is I was probably 7.5, 8 years old at this point, year and a half into being in the United States. One of the apartments that we lived in was so filthy that when we moved in, within like a few days, I got lice. And my mom and dad, while my mom and dad worked multiple jobs, my older brother and older sister had multiple jobs. It wasn't enough to cover all of our expenses. And so they couldn't afford lice treatment. So my mom had my dad siphon out gasoline from a parked car to wash my hair with, because it was obviously cheaper than spending whatever, $5 on lice treatment. But all that to say that even though we went through some really incredible hardship, like dumpster diving for food and all these things, I wouldn't trade it for the world, man, because the opportunities this great country has given us has just been incredible.
And I think it's interesting. If you look around, and I want to get a little bit into, what just happened over the last 2 years with, COVID and everything else. But, I grew up here, so I see things a little different, but I grew up in a lower middle-class family where my mom, had a hard time putting food on the table and really had a hard time keeping the tiny little house over our head. But so many Americans take this country for granted. And, listen, no matter who's listening to this, like the United States of America is the greatest country on earth. It's the land of opportunity. And you saw that, but too many people that live here don't see that. They take it for granted. They just go about it. And, you did an ad recently and I love it. And you were talking about a comment that somebody made and they said, well, yeah, because those people have money. You didn't have money. I mean, you had to siphon gas to get rid of lice. You know what that's like. Most, I'm not going to say all, but a lot of Americans, they don't know and probably never will know that aspect. So they just take things for granted. They don't see the real opportunity and they constantly think, oh, it's all about somebody's resources. And you've heard this quote before, but it's never about your actual resources. It's about how resourceful you can be. What did you that comment that came in where he said, oh, that's because they had money. How did you handle that? I know that hits you kind of like a kick to the gut.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that comment, and then also the comment where I talk about entrepreneurship, and people will say, but it takes money to make money, which I believed that as well. So I get it. It's not so much that people have bad intentions when they say that. That really is what they believe. I come to understand that. I used to think that it takes money to make money, when in reality, today we've got our iPhones or our Androids, and we can start a free Instagram, Facebook, YouTube account, and then we can make how-to videos. And through these amazing algorithms, let's say if we make how-to videos, I see a skateboard in the background there, so I'm going to say how to skateboard. If we're making how-to videos on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, well, then all of a sudden, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube is going to use their algorithm to get me more people who want to learn how to ride the skateboard and how to do awesome tricks on the skateboard. And if I've got a course and I'm like, yeah, but I don't have a website. Well, now I've got WordPress that's free that I can make a website on. I can attach a free PayPal button to it. PayPal will take 2.9% of the price of my course. I can use my iPhone to create the course of how to ride a skateboard and how to do tricks on it. And before I know it, I've got my marketing machine through social media. I've got my sales page through WordPress, my shopping cart through PayPal, and then my course that's literally living on WordPress. And the barrier to the American dream, to entrepreneurship, to success, to making money is lower than ever. However, the mental barrier that people have is so fucking high that they are simply lied to, thinking that it takes money to make money, or the only people that can really do it are the people who already have money. That's untrue. If you don't have money, you have time. And if you have time, you could create a lot of content and build an audience to sell a service or a product to. The reality is most people are lazy. And that's the thing that they don't want to face, because it's easier to look out the glass and treat it like a window and go, they are the problems, the people with the money, or the people that are limiting my growth, or the people that are quarantining me. Let's not forget that during this whole pandemic, during the quarantine, so many new businesses were built because of the new problems that were created during the pandemic, and people were willing to solve those problems in exchange for money. Those people didn't look at the glass as a window and point out and say it's their fault. They looked at the glass as a mirror and said, hey, what can I do to solve a problem? And when you solve a problem, you make money. The more sophisticated the problem that you solve, the more money you make. And that is how money moves.
I love it, man. You like recited so much of what we talk about all the time, here in our companies, and it's all money focused, but it's all about the lies that we've been told our whole life. Your industry, unlike mine, was hit twice as hard. They literally just overnight shut you down. You couldn't operate in the capacity in which you did. How did that hit you? What did you do? And what happened?
Well, so Chris, I got to tell you, first off, being a former communist, or at least having that mindset of never trust the government, I always operate with a healthy amount of paranoia. And I think everybody should, right? Like, I remember many years ago, Grant Cardone invited me to do his show, Power Players. And he goes like, how do you think? What's your mindset like? I'm like, oh, every morning I wake up and I assume there's like 10 different people across the country, somewhere in their basement or in their kitchen, with this marker board. And on the top of their marker board, it says how to destroy Fit Body Bootcamp, or how to take down Bedros, or how to take down Bedros's empire. When you operate out of that level of paranoia, then you go, well, shoot, I got to wake up and I got to figure out how to not let them destroy, and how I can gain one more location today, and one more new state, and one more new country that I can enter as a franchise. And so a healthy level of paranoia is what I used when on March 16th, I said, hey guys, to our franchisees, because remember, franchise is so weird, man. Even though I am the founder, and at the time I was also the CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp, I'm no longer the CEO. I'm just the founder of Fit Body Bootcamp now, thankfully. But my former VP is the CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp, and it's just cool to see him thrive. That's a whole different story about building leaders. But on March 16th, I did a Facebook Live in our private Fit Body Bootcamp Facebook group, and I told our owners, I said, hey guys, listen, we have a social obligation to shut down, because we hear that this is like some death virus and it's killing everybody, and we wanted to spend the next 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right? And that was March 16th of 2020. Soon as I hung up that live, I went right into our leadership room. I said, hey, I'll get all the leaders together, my VPs and my head of operations. And I said, guys, in case this goes on any longer, I want you guys to create 30 days of done for you workouts that we can give to our franchisees to broadcast in a private Facebook group, and basically take all of their local Fit Body Bootcamp clients, put them in a private Facebook group across the country and throughout Canada, where all of our locations are, US and Canada. And now they can do Facebook Lives in there. They could do the culture building. They could give people their workouts and their macros. And every day they can put up a new workout that everyone's got to do at home. And so literally in 72 hours, we filmed 30 follow along workouts. And then we built the platform with Trainerize, Facebook, and Zoom, where you can do lives and interaction and all this stuff, because we wanted to give as much of the gym experience to the clients as possible. Because I knew one thing, the government lies. And since if the government is truly lying and this goes longer, clients are going to quit their memberships at the Fit Body Bootcamp locations. Fit Body Bootcamp owners are going to come to me and say, I don't want to pay my monthly royalty fees. Then I have to start firing employees. And so the domino effect begins. And so I said, hey guys, on the off chance that this goes more than 2 weeks, you're going to use Trainerize and Zoom and Facebook groups. And here's the done for you workouts. Here's how your coaches are going to interact so you can keep your coaches employed. You're going to tell your clients not to stop working out, because fitness is important for culture and immune system and your mood and your mindset. And then you're not going to stop charging them, and we're not going to stop charging you your franchise fees, so that we can keep supporting you should this go longer. Some of our competitors, other competing franchises, sadly were like, hey, just put a sign on your front door that says, we'll be back in 2 weeks. Until then, we're stopping your monthly fees, which sucks because, as we know, the whole lockdown went well over 10 months. You know, there was an open and the temporary close again, and depending state by state, things changed. But my whole mindset was, I'm going to trust but verify, the old Ronald Reagan method. I'm going to trust that this is a 2-week thing, but I'm going to verify that we're going to stay in business by creating a contingency should this go longer than 2 weeks. And so my healthy sense of paranoia, coming from a fucked up communist country, helped out in this situation.
The one thing you didn't do there that I was waiting for is you never talked about your leadership and how you actually took control of that. So we were out at an event in California where we both spoke on the same stage. It was the Avengers Mastermind. And I'll never forget something you said in that event when you were speaking. You talked about crabs, and you talked about crabs, I believe, in a bucket. Mm-hmm. And can you tell the crab story? I don't know if this is something you say a lot, or if that was like just the first time I'd heard it, but it's brilliant.
You know, it's funny too, because during that whole 2020 period, once we realized this thing was bullshit, and I told my franchisees, I'm like, look, each of your locations are independently owned and operated. Although you are a Fit Body Bootcamp, I'm not saying that you should go open your locations, but if I were you, and with my own corporate location, I'm opening it up for business. We're going to just tape off areas where people can train in boxes and there's no rotation. So no one's touching equipment that other people are touching. And here's what I recommend, but it's your choice, your decision. And it was neat to see how majority of them opened up and operated, I guess, against the mandates. Sadly, those who didn't open up and were like, no, you know what? This is the death virus and I'm going to be a rule follower. Sadly, they went away. And so that opened up new territories for us to sell. I didn't want to have to lose them, but we did. But I share that with you because during that time, that was the first time in our 15 years of Fit Body Bootcamp history that my own franchisees were saying that I am being reckless. Some of them who were like, hey, man, don't tell people to open up. Like, you're going to put people at risk. That I'm being reckless, that I am being, it's all about the money for me. And I not following the science. And I remember thinking like, man, this is exactly like the crab story. All I'm trying to do is save them and save myself. And instead they're pulling me down. So I'll tell you the crab story. In 2005, my wife and I were invited to go on we were broke, man. We were broke. We had just gotten married and her grandparents were like, hey, we're going on a family cruise. I had never been on a cruise. I was like an $80,000 in debt. We had just gotten married. And I'm like, shoot, free cruise to Alaska? I'm in. So we go, and this giant cruise ship stops at Ketchikan, Alaska. That was the first port. and we're going to spend the day there. So we're walking along the waterfront, and there's these fishermen that are casting out a net and then pulling it in. And sometimes they'll have little crabs in there. Other times it's like an empty net. But I look at this one fisherman, and he's got this like 5-gallon bucket. And at the bottom of the bucket are like 5 or 6 crabs, about this big each, about the size of my palm, with a little bit of water in it. But he's got the lid off, and he's not looking at what's happening in the bucket because he's too busy casting his net and fishing. But I realized that there's this one little ambitious crab at the bottom that's crawling on top of all the other crabs, and he's reaching up for the rim of the bucket to hoist himself up, I imagine, and throw himself over and, sideways walk to freedom. And I'm just watching this, and I go, sir, I think your crab's about to make a getaway, man. Like, you might want to put that lid on there. Without even turning around, Chris, to look at me, he goes, watch what happens next. So obviously this is a very inherent thing to crabs. But as this little ambitious crab starts hoisting himself up, all the other crabs at the bottom reach up, grab it by its hind legs, and pull it right down, man. And I'm just smacking my wife on her arm. I'm like, holy shit, that's us. And those are some of the friends who tell us that we can't do it, that this vision that we have at the time we were creating this fitness software, that this vision that we have for the software is not going to happen. This is way before Fit Body Bootcamp was ever created. But that I can't be an entrepreneur, that I should have just stuck to being a personal trainer in a big box gym. Like, those are the crabs. And the reality is that the people that you think support you always end up really identifying their true colors during times of duress and stress. It's like, anybody can be a fair weather friend. Like, anybody can be a friend during spring and summer when everything's going your way. It's when the clouds come, and when Tony Robbins says winter is coming, and winter comes, and it's dark clouds, and it's thunder, and it's lightning, and it's storm day after day. Is Chris there for me to rely on? Is Chris there to be a voice for me to just bounce things off of? Like, that's how you measure a friend. And unfortunately, for most of us in life, you can probably count on the friends on maybe 1 or 2 fingers, like true friends. Most people are like crabs and are looking to just pull you down to their level of dissatisfaction of life.
It's interesting. And I hope all the listeners can really get that mental image of that one crab who easily could have gotten out of that bucket, but yet everyone else pulls him back down. How many people are pulling you back down in your lives? And, I always quote this from stage and from everywhere I speak. It's a Will Rogers quote. And he says, the biggest problem in America is not what people don't know. The biggest problem in America is what people think they know that just ain't so. And that's the problem. The people that pull us down, they do it in the form of, it's usually our family members, our closest friends. It's not the people that we don't know. It's not the people out there that, we meet in our lives. It's always the ones closest to us. And they pull us down because of their failed dreams, their failed realities, because they can't see the big picture that we're chasing. That crab saw freedom, and no one else in that bucket could see freedom because they were just, well, this is our reality. What's the best advice you have for the people that are dealing with that can't seem to focus on their dreams and what they really want to accomplish? Because the people closest to them, and sometimes it's a significant other or a spouse or, a mother or father or a brother or sister. How do they break those chains and get out of that bucket?
It's going to be easier said than done, but here it goes anyway, right? Because we have to understand that those people are also functionary. Now I realize, looking back, gosh, that was 2005 or in 2022. So, that was some time ago, right? Well over 15 years ago. But I look back and I realize those people who are crabs in your life, who tell you can't do it, they are no different. Chris, I know you work out consistently. When you go to the gym, and whether you're doing curls or presses or whatever, you're on the treadmill or you're running, you're constantly stressing out your muscles intentionally against resistance when we work out. Because when you stress out your muscles or your cardiovascular system, it improves. It gets bigger, stronger, more resilient. So why should we think that we're not supposed to have resistance in our life where growth, personal growth, financial growth is concerned? And so and maybe this is a reframe just so I don't lose my mind and go whack all the people in my life who are fucking crabs. And I'm sure it's probably a reframe, but they are functionary. They are the resistance against our resolve. Because whether it's your dad or your best friend, and I've had both of those things happen to me in my life, my siblings telling me that, dude, what do you know about software? You dropped out of junior college in 31 days, Bedros. You can't even make sales of personal training. You don't even know how to sell. So what if you make the software? You can't even sell it anyway. You've never done anything in terms of leadership. What makes you think you can lead a software company, right? Let alone a franchise years later. But those people act as the resistance, the weights that we need against our mental muscles, emotional muscles, for us to press and pull against and build those muscles. They can also act as a point of failure, meaning someone walks into the gym, they're just not feeling it. The weights feel heavy. Rather than fighting through until the endorphins start kicking, they do 1 or 2 sloppy sets and they go, fuck it, today's not the day, and they leave. And that one day stacks up to be a week, and a week becomes a month becomes a year. 10 years down the road, they're a fat ass, shuttle bus driver working at the Hilton versus, the badass that you are. Well, the reality is that you and I were willing to stay in the gym. Mm-hmm. And that gym metaphor is also the resistance that comes through friends and family. Having said that, if I went into my phone and I showed you the number of people that I've got blocked, 196 individuals blocked phone numbers so that they can't call me or text me. These are former friends, some family, believe it or not, some former clients and customers, because they served as crabs in my life. And when I worked with the therapist back 8 years ago, my therapist, Kevin, was like, look, if you have negative and toxic people in your life, he goes, you're the CEO of your business, right? You make decisions. I go, yeah. He goes, you do realize you're the CEO of your own life as well. And you can decide who you fire, who you promote. I'm like, well, that makes a lot of sense. And he goes, so you can eliminate or edit people out of your life. And eliminate means just, hey, I'm no longer going to associate with you, talk to you. And that doesn't mean you should go and be like, hey, Bob, we're no longer going to be friends, even though we were friends since high school. You just slowly stop responding to them and they get the hint and they fade away. Simple as that. That's eliminating toxic people out of your life. And then editing people or editing relationships is a byproduct of, for example, my mom and dad. I love them to pieces, man. They risked their life and brought us to the United States. However, every time I had a big, massive 3-day event where I'm going to fill up the seats with 1,500 people and give away a Land Rover every year, I would be excited and I'd go to my parents' house and I'd tell them that. And my dad, in his heavy Russian accent, why would you do this? How are you going to fill up the seats? Right? And it's like, dude, I've done this for 10 years and every year I sell out the goddamn thing. And I would just like get so angry. And of course, after talking to Kevin, I realized I don't need to talk to him. I can edit my relationship and not talk to him about business. I can talk to him about his backyard and the tomatoes and the cucumbers that he raises and he grows. And when you edit the conversation and the relationship, you no longer put yourself in a position to get heated up and want to whack family members. And then people who aren't that close to you, you can simply eliminate that relationship, or as you said, put them in timeout so that they are no longer a negative impact in your life.
I like that. That was awesome. Edit the conversation. I've never heard it put in that context, but I really like that. And I'm actually going to start doing that because there's definitely some people that, are in my family that I need to just stop talking to them about certain things because it becomes toxic and then you get nowhere because then it's the divide, which is very much like the divide that's happening in this country, which is sad to see. But, this too shall pass, as they would say that. So Fit Body Bootcamp. I want to just go back to that. You literally took this company and I guess I'm getting old. I'm 44 now, but you mentioned 2005 and you're broke. To me, 2005 wasn't that long ago. I know it was, but it just doesn't feel like it was that long ago. And a lot of people think when, they've got a dream that they're chasing and it's really hard, they think, oh, this is going to take forever. How long did it take you to build the brand and get it? Because most businesses kind of go along slow and then they hockey stick. Is that what happened for yours?
Yeah, believe it or not, it did. And my story is a little different, but everybody's story has its own little flavor to it. So you remember what happened in 2008, the economy crashed, housing market crashed. And up until 2008, or I guess late 2007, I was, by this point, I'd left the big box gym. I'd gotten married in 2003. By 2005, we were building this fitness software. While the software didn't take off, you had another pivot. I built a big list of gym owners and personal trainers. The software was never profitable, but now I had a list of gym owners and personal trainers. And by this point, I had built out 5 personal training gyms of my own called Premier Results. This is way before Fit Body Bootcamp. And in these little tiny boutique gyms throughout San Diego, we would do one-on-one personal training. So I had 5, 10, 15 trainers per gym. And so we were doing well. So I sold those gyms and I started coaching and consulting personal trainers on how to run their gyms successfully, profitably, etc. Well, all those gyms were one-on-ones because that's what I had done. So I coached them to run a one-on-one personal training gym. When the housing market crashed in 2008, as you could imagine, there wasn't a lot of people that were willing to pay $700 to $1,000.
They didn't have all the money to pay the personal trainers. And you know why I know that? I was one of them. I was a Wall Street stockbroker. I had the money prior to 2008. 2008 happened. Man, I couldn't afford any of that stuff. So yeah, the big pivot again. Here we go.
Yeah, that's exactly it, man. So when people can't afford one-on-one personal training, I started losing gym owners as coaching clients, and as they were losing their personal training clients. In the meantime, like I would drive around town here in Chino Hills, and I would see that some guy's running a boot camp outdoors, and instead of one-on-one, it's one-on-many. And so I'm like watching this. I'm like, well, dude, they're using body weight because it's a park, so there's really no equipment to use. And I remember one time I was watching them work out, and there was like 25 clients and one guy running the class, and like this rabid dog started chasing the people. And then one other time it was raining, and I'm like, I wonder if they're running into the park right now. And I get to the park and they're running into the park, but there's only 3 clients and the trainer because no one else wanted to show up because the weather's, and that's in Southern California. So I'm like, you know what? I wonder if I can bring the outdoor boot camp indoors and begin to charge for it, create a one-on-many program where now we make personal training a group training program, which makes it affordable and convenient. Because now instead of Chris paying $700 a month to work out 3 days a week at 7 a.m., which means the 7 a.m. time slot is taken, now it's 7 a.m. Chris can pay $149 a month along with 35 other clients, and they can come to the 7 a.m. class, and it's indoors and we have equipment. It's not just body weight. So we're weatherproof and all this stuff. And sure enough, we tested it out in a gymnastics center because I didn't even want to risk buying or leasing a storefront. And so gymnastic centers are usually empty until about 2 p.m. because kids get out of school and then they come there. So I said, hey, can I pay you $500 a month and run the group personal training program on your floors at this gymnastic center? They're like, yeah, sure. I go, can I bring some dumbbells and some furniture sliders and some battle ropes and TRX? They go, yeah, sure. So I hung the TRX up and off we went. Well, dude, within like 6 weeks, we were making $15,000 a month in recurring revenue. And we're talking about 3 classes a day in the mornings because there was no evening classes because the gymnastic center was being used. I'm like, we are onto something here. And so that's when we leased our first location and opened it up. But 2008, I thought of the idea. By 2009, we were testing the first location. By 2010, we started off as a licensing program because I didn't even know what a franchise was. And so basically, Chris, you get this territory, we'll give you 5 miles radius. And bro, we were so, and by the way, there's so much brilliance to just taking imperfect action. Like I didn't test anything out in terms of like, we would give everybody a 5-mile radius. Well, what happens if you live in Newport Beach? 5-mile radius means 2.5 miles of it is in the Pacific Ocean, right? And so like, that's how unorganized we were. But I was licensing it out and the brand and the system and the model, and gym owners were like, dude, I love this. We're switching from one-on-one to one-on-many, and we're going to run this in our place. And I give them their territories. Well, by 2011, California, the state of California comes to me and says, hey, because you're giving them a territory, you have now crossed the line into franchising, and we're going to fine you $2,500 per location. By this point, I've had about 115 locations open, licensees. I'm like, look, if you fine me that kind of money, I'm going to have to go bankrupt, which means no one's going to be able to support these licensees. What can we do? If I promise not to sell another location until I become a franchise, will you let me slide? They say yes. And so took me 13 months to become a franchise. So by late 2012, we were officially a franchise. And then 2013, 14, 15, 16 were our hockey stick years. But it all started with like just seeing a problem. The problem was the economy crashed. People can't afford one-on-one personal training. Seeing what I thought was a solution, boot camps, but they're doing it outdoors. And if I bring it indoors, now we can do it across the country, and it doesn't matter if it's snowing or raining or whatever. and then taking the risk to actually fucking deploy it, and just taking imperfect action, and then negotiating with the state of California so they didn't fine the fuck out of me. And that led to actually figuring out like what a franchise is. And now we've got a whole team of 70 people who work here and worldwide for us, who help our brand grow. And we're about to enter now Saudi Arabia. Like for the first time ever, you got Middle Eastern countries that are excited to embrace fitness. And they're asking us to come in there, and they're buying up 19 locations at a time, which is so freaking awesome, man.
It's just crazy. 2008, when we think about it, I was prior to that, it was just one-on-one training. I remember the gyms I went to. I remember the trainers I worked with. And I don't remember, and I'm here in New York, I don't remember seeing a single group training anywhere. Right. So by you taking that model and just being the one that had the balls to go do it and just say, fuck this, I'm just going to bring it inside and I'm going to do it. Like, you literally changed the entire industry. The gym I work out at, it's all group training. I mean, yeah, there's one-on-one, but everybody's in the group trainings. The one-on-one's that's minimal. And then every other gym I've ever been to is group. So you literally were one of the pioneers for an industry, and you did it just because you saw a problem because of one event that happened that created the 2008 Great Recession and made everybody, basically put everybody on their knees. And you're just like, you know what? You pivoted, you saw an opportunity that solved a fairly big problem. Mm-hmm. And now how many franchisees do you have now?
Just over 600 locations now, which is really awesome. And you know, what's weird about this too, is anytime something crazy happens, like the Great Depression way back in the day, and then we have our big financial depression that happened in 2008. You can go back to 9/11, 2001, September 11, that created a very economic, turbulent time. And then even the most recent pandemic, there's two types of people: the people that can go, oh shit, look at all the things that have gone wrong. And then there's the type of people that go, oh man, look at all the opportunities that might be created. Because what I also realized is when the housing market crashed, the next thing to crash is the commercial market. There was so many storefronts, like 2,500 square foot and 3,000 square foot storefronts that were empty at all these different plazas and shopping malls. And so we were like literally getting Fit Body Bootcamp locations inside these plazas for like $1.25 per square foot, and then getting 6 months of free rent, and then getting like $40,000 in TI, which is tenant improvement, which the landlord pays for. And so all I saw was like, holy shit, this is great. I get to grow this bootcamp brand at a discount. And also on Facebook, everybody stopped marketing on Facebook because everyone was trying to go save their money. So the cost per click for getting franchisees and getting clients in were cheaper. So I think I'm mentally programmed to look for opportunity when there's disaster. But if I was mentally programmed to look for problems, I would quickly hear what I just said and then start forcing myself to see opportunities instead of problems during the next disaster, because money never disappears. It just changes hands, brother. And once we understand that, we just go, where did the money go? And then what could I do to follow it?
I love that. Nobody seems to prepare for storms. I'm here in Buffalo, New York. We get winter storms like very few other places in the country. When a storm comes here, we get dumped on with sometimes 5, sometimes 6, 7 feet of snow in 36 hours. Every person that lives here knows how to prepare for the storm. We hear about it coming. We don't need much time. We know exactly what to do because we've been there, we've done that, and we prepare. In this storm that I think is coming, which is an economic meltdown, to the tune of what was the Great Depression back in the day, I truly believe that is the storm that is coming. My question is how many people actually are starting to prepare for that storm, preparing for what this could look like, what they should do, how they can get ready. I just see a whole bunch of people out there spending a whole bunch of money on stupid things because everybody's trying to be rich, because everybody feels rich simply because their house went up in value, because they got a raise at work. Everybody's rich right now, but riches are not the same as wealth. Wealth is when you learn how to actually keep money. And much like what you talked about, every morning you wake up like everything's going to be taken from you. So you prepare daily, mentally, physically. What do you see coming and what's next for you?
Well, I mean, you nailed it. There is another great massive economic depression coming. And it's funny because history repeats itself, yet
Always.
people don't pay attention. Just today, do you know who Tim Kennedy is?
I've heard the name. I don't know much about him.
So he's a Green Beret. He's got a big following because he also was a UFC fighter and a friend of mine. He put up a post today because, and on the post, the picture was in black and white. And in Vietnam, all these little babies were abandoned when the U.S. left Vietnam, and Vietnam was kind of left to be itself. All these little babies were abandoned, and U.S. military personnel put all of these kids, these babies, in these little boxes, and it's inside of a plane. And literally, the plane is full of babies sleeping in these boxes that are seatbelted to seats. And it's that picture. Someone took the picture, and Tim Kennedy right now is involved with Operation Save Our Allies, helping do the same thing now from Afghanistan when we so abruptly left Afghanistan 6 months ago, because today is the 6-month anniversary of that. And so he's involved, and he went on to say that, look at history repeating itself. It happened in Vietnam, it's happening now. And thankfully, again, our military men and women are out there doing the work that others aren't willing to do, and that the government wants to just slide under the rug. Well, the same thing, sadly, is repeating itself. We saw that home values went up in 2006, 5 and 6 and 7, and everybody was rich, and everybody was refinancing and buying a car and building a pool and going on vacations. It's happening now. The government's giving you checks, and you're getting pay raises because of this fake, phony inflation that's taken place. And of course, home prices have gone up. You would think that you would go, I remember this happening like a decade and a half ago. I wonder if the similar outcome is about to be produced, and I better batten down the hatches. Kind of like you said, they're in Buffalo. You guys know what a storm is like, and you know how to prepare for it. Yet civilization will continue to build a straw house, most of civilization, like the Three Little Pigs. And I believe, again, that's functionary. For the rest of us to be wealthy, the majority must go broke. And I know that sounds very harsh to say, but that's how it is, man. There was a study done, I think, in Africa many, many years ago, where they gave like $1,000 out equally to a tribe. And within 6 months,
all the money was back in the hands of this people that gave it out.
Bingo. All the money was in the back of the hands of like the 10% of the people that controlled the wealth anyways, because they just know how money moves. And so, bro, it's just the same thing.
The same thing just happened. Maybe it wasn't, a tribe. Everybody that just got a check, that money is going back to the same people that gave you the check. You just don't even see it. I can't believe that people can't understand what's going on right now. And it's going to be a hard reality. And, I love that you said that. A lot of people would hear that and they'd be like, oh, they would hate on that. But you know what? It's the truth. It's been the truth since before Christ. Yeah. It's always been that way. And it almost has to be that way, because the strong will survive and the weak will die. And that will never change. So people just have to start deciding, are you going to be the one that buries your head in the sand and just hopes it all goes by? Or are you going to be the one that raises the torch and says, everybody follow me. I'll show you through this and be the leader. You're the leader. That's all there is to it. Your business, your success and everything. Some people are like, oh, you just got lucky. You didn't get lucky. There is no luck. Luck follows opportunity. And that is always how it's going to be. You saw the opportunity. Luck just followed that, and it will always do that. And I love what you do. I love what you stand for. I followed you a lot, and I just wish more people could just see what you've done, how you've done it. And I hope this show is that show that gets more people, even if it's just even if it's just one person, that this show gets to change the way they look at life and the way that they do things. That's a success, one at a time. So with that, what's next for you?
Well, I got to tell you, I've had the good fortune to have some very strong leaders in my organization. So I've got Bryce, who's been my VP for some time. We put him in as CEO this past April of Fit Body Bootcamp, our supplement company that we launched 3 years ago. Really took off during this pandemic because we created a wellness packet, a wellness shot that, everybody should have been working out and eating clean, but instead they'd rather take a supplement because it's just easier. But anyway, our supplement company took off, and we've got a great leader there. And that's allowed me to create time to work on a second book, and also to work on my passion projects, which is the project, which is a 75-hour men's personal development program, and also the Squire program, which is a 15-hour father and son experience where we take 40 fathers and sons and put them through this rite of passage experience where as these boys are becoming men and they win a seat at the table. And it's just, if there was a mark I'm going to leave on this planet, it is the project and the Squire program. And my two companies are there to just fund that.
I love it. And I'm writing a new book and it's all about the laws of wealth. I'm writing it for my daughter so that, she has simple laws to follow throughout. But law number 6 is what you just described. Create a legacy that's bigger than you so that when you're gone from this earth onto a better place, people remember what you've done to change their lives and solve their problems. And that is the legacy you're creating. I love it. Absolutely love it. Last question, Man Up. What is it?
So Man Up is a book that I wrote. It came out September of 2018. It took me about 3 years to write it. It was my journey of going from a shit show of a leader. I was always a great marketer and salesperson. I developed that skill. It wasn't inherent. I would develop that skill, but I was a very poor leader. And when my company hockey sticked and you went from 2 employees to 20 to 40, you don't know how to lead them. And I was a poor communicator, indecisive, very unclear in my vision. If you asked me back then, Bedros, how many Fit Body Bootcamp locations do you want? I would say a lot. And you said, when do you want it by? I would say as soon as possible. That is a very poor vision. How about a number by a date? Like that would have been a little more clear. And so during my hockey stick years, and while it's so great to talk about those hockey stick years, there's also those downward hockey stick months where I just felt like eating a bullet, where I was taking NyQuil and Vicodin every night to go to sleep. I would pop Adderall and drink a pot of coffee just to wake up in the morning. My relationship was on the rocks with my wife because there was so much tension in the family. So that also is the entrepreneurial journey, and no one talks about it. So I was like, fuck it. When I got to the other end of it, became a better entrepreneur, talked to a therapist, worked through my shit. I wrote a book called Man Up, Cut Your Bullshit and Dominate in Business and in Life. And it became a bestseller. And so the book is really about the 6 pillars of entrepreneurial leadership that starts with pillar number 1, creating discipline for yourself. And then pillar number 6, which is creating a high performing team so that you could do stuff like this while your team is literally taking your vision and bringing it out to the universe.
That's fantastic. I love it, man. And I really appreciate your time today. So if everybody wants to grab your book, learn more about what you're doing, and just follow your journey, what's the best place?
Best place to grab the book is at manup.com. And to follow me and learn more about me, just find Bedros Keuilian on the old Instagrams.
There you go, folks. So make sure you follow him on social media, especially Instagram. You post a lot of stuff on there. Grab the book. We'll put the link in the description, folks. Bedros, thank you so much for your time. Keep killing it. I'll be watching, and I'm sure we'll cross paths many more times.
Thanks, brother.
All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. We're putting up tons of them, but I think if you like this one, you'll probably like that video as well.
I think the strength of a true leader is when you sit on the board of a company and there are 20 people around the table and 19 people around that table are saying the answer is yes, and you know it's no.